Welcome back to the series where we are taking a design from idea to pattern to animation. In the last video, we drafted this cute dress flat pattern and we laid the foundation for our design. But before we move forward, we need to ensure that everything is accurate, clean, and ready for production. Hi, I'm Christina and I love to digitally pattern draft where I can create amazing pieces of wearable art to wear and to share with others. And in this video, we're going to focus on 3 key steps: truing the pattern, making sure all the seams align perfectly, and adjusting any inconsistencies. Then we're going to do fit adjustments, check proportions, and maybe make some tweaks and improve the final fit. And then we're going to finalize the pattern, adding important details like notches and grain lines and labels so we can make sure that everybody knows how to put it together and what everything is. These steps are crucial for a well-drafted pattern, and even small errors can affect the way the garment fits and the function. So by the end of this video, we're going to have a polished production-ready pattern that is one step closer to becoming a finished dress. So let's go ahead and dive on in and start making these pattern pieces as precise as possible. I'm going to bring up the Clo 3D board with our dress pattern on it right here. And we're just going to kind of go and take a look. So we have our fronts and our backs, and everything is kind of just looking decent to start. So I'm going to kind of zoom in, and the first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to want to look right here at this part right here, that side seam of that belt. It's kind of doing a really funky V down, and it's actually not all that funky. Right now, if I were to line these two pattern pieces up, I'm going to go ahead and bring them close. And we're going to go ahead and walk the pattern. So I'm going to walk this pattern from here to here. And then we're going to move that walk pattern to that intersection so that we can see. So it is actually not creating that nice smooth transition that we would like. It's very harsh, it's a corner, and it's making it point. Now that can be a design feature that you want to do. However, for this one, I want a nice smooth transition. So I'm going to give myself an edit here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to move to a monochromatic scheme. That way I'm not working with black fabric and black lines, and I can see a little bit easier. Then I'm going to go ahead and give myself some guidelines. And I'm just going to kind of, that's not quite on that line. I'm going to smooth out this line. Just like that. Yeah, and I want to do the same up top here. Give it a nice little bit of a smooth transition. So that's kind of going to give me that guidance on where I'm going to actually create my new pattern. So then I'm going to draft a polygon, and I'm just going to go ahead and trace these parts right here, like so, and go up, get a nice curve going there, and finish it. Oh, and I can see I didn't actually hit that the very first, so we're going to pull that in, so that is 90 degrees. I'm going to move that guy up and out of the way. And the other thing I want to check, I should have done this, so that's 1997, and that's 2. So I'm actually going to change the length of that. And I'm going to change it at the end to 2. And it's just going to pop it up just a smidge. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to draft my polygon right on that line. I'm going to have to fix that because I did not hit that corner there very well. Up. There we go. And close. So then I want to edit this guy. Oops. There we go. And then I'm also twist that flat. There we go. Pull it off. I'm going to check that's 2. I want this to be 2, so I'm going to change the length. I could have done that while I was drafting it, and I probably should have, but I didn't. It just makes it so I have to do another step later, which is okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and archive these patterns, pull them up so that I don't have to worry about them. Then we're going to rotate this, or rotate to the y-axis, and move it over so that we have the front and back seam. Then we're just going to unfold. Oops. I want to unfold with editing. Then we're going to, first I'm just going to go ahead and delete this old sewing. I want to delete it just so that it's not there anymore. I'm not going to go back to that pattern, and it'll just be easier. And then we're just going to sew from one side to the other. Re-sew everything in. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this in 2 because it's there. There we go. And then the last thing, we need to sew side seam to side seam. Then we can go ahead and place our pattern piece. So I want the center front and place it down. I am going to, give me the curve. I'm going to offset it just a little bit because it's kind of really sitting in my girl's waist. Then I'm going to flip around to the back. I'm going to do the same thing, is we're going to offset. This offset's a really handy feature to help kind of make sure everything's looking good. Double check my seams. It doesn't look like it did not, I must not have done symmetric sewing on one of my unfolds, which that's okay. Got that there. Turn those dots off and we can re-simulate. And that created a much smoother look. So let's go ahead, change that fabric to the black. And it's still doing a little bit of a down V. It's not as bad. And now I bet it's actually because of the skirt side seams and everything. So we can go ahead and walk those patterns next. I'm going to stop simulating. And let's go ahead and, oops. I want to walk this pattern to that pattern that way. Yeah, so it probably just needs a little bit better of a curve. And it actually doesn't need that much. So I'm gonna, instead of actually moving it, I'm just going to change this. So we're going to add to a perpendicular corner. And we're going to go 0.25 to kind of bring that down. And then that's just going to curve that a little bit more. Now I do have to do it on both sides. Normally you wouldn't necessarily have to do it on both sides. But because my pattern is asymmetrical, it's going to be giving me a little bit of problems. So we're going to complete. We're going to go that way, 0.25. Have it kind of curve in just a little bit. 0.25. Simulate it. Pop it up. And that's making me a lot happier. So the next thing I also want to do is I want to look at the hem, because the hem right now is definitely longer on the two sides, which means I probably have this long edge just a little bit too long. So one of the really great things about Clo is you can actually put in basically a plain to kind of give yourself a hem. So we're going to go ahead and put in a plain, which is this one. Yes. So I'm going to get basically as low as I can. Can I go up just a little bit, see where I'm heading? So I'm just taking off the smallest little bit at the very front of that hem and the back. But it's going to help me even out those sides. Then I'm going to take my the edit button or the edit tool of that. So any tool that has like a little arrow up top, that's the edit tool of those. So like for my sewing, this is the edit sewing tool, where these two are the actual sewing. So that's always a fun thing, that if it has like that little arrow that matches another one, it's probably an edit tool. I'm going to right click and trace as an internal line. And we can see it traced on the front and back. And before I let it unhighlight, I'm going to change to Z, and I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to grab all those pieces. All came in one. I'm just going to move them up and out of the way, archive them. And then there we have a nicely even hem. Now, in the real world, you still will have to double check your hemming, and you will still have to check all that stuff, because every different type of fabric's going to hem a little bit differently. It's going to stretch a little bit differently. And especially because we are working on a gored skirt, you might have it stretch in different areas at different times. If you're enjoying videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so you can support the channel and continue to see fun digital draftings and how to create your own pieces of wearable art. Now that we have this pattern basically kind of trued up, let's go ahead and take a little look at the fitting. So in Clo, there are a couple different fitting aspects. You can see the stress, and you can see right here, this is giving you the guideline on how much stress is on here. Then we can look at the strain map. Now we did pattern this a little bit tighter because I am planning to make it, or I would be planning to make it out of a knit fabric. So I do want the strain to be a little bit, it's saying that it's stretching up to 120 though. And this is just, I don't think we've actually picked a fabric for this. So this is just kind of out of this fabric. We could actually go in, put a fabric in there, and it would tell us a little bit more accurately about everything. Then the last thing is the fit map. So it's saying that up here around the neck is tight, and it's saying there are 4 spots of red that won't fit a human at all. But I don't see where those 4 spots are. They're up here. They're up on my other one. They're up on my picture that I've compared to. So that's good. So that means we're doing pretty good. And then the last one is kind of the pressure map. This is the one that I always find is hardest to kind of see and determine. Sometimes if you change to, is it monochromatic? Is that the one that's going to help? Sometimes that one's hard to work with. So I normally work with the stress, strain, and fit map. And then depending on the type of fabric, since I don't have a specific fabric in mind right now, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but this is where we can really look. It's like, oh, we're really pulling red here. And if this was a woven, we'd definitely be like, okay, we need to give her a little bit more room, which would make sense because she actually doesn't have any dart takens. She's literally just there. Like we don't have any dart takens at all. So that's when you would want to work with that and continue to kind of finesse and finalize your pattern. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and notch our fabric, or our pattern pieces. So the notcher tool is right here, and it is a wonderful tool because, so we know, like this one, we can go a little bit crazy with notching. So you want to be a little bit careful with how much you're going to notch. Just because too much notching is going to cause many more problems than not notching enough. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plan this notch right here. So I'm going to first figure out, this is 13.235. So we're going to go in our notch. We're going to right click and we're going to go to our blue line, 13.235. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to notch for that. Then on this other side, let's find out. We are at 11,167. So then we're going to get to our notch, right click, 11,167, and that's going to notch. So now that's notching each side where each of those pieces is going to hit. Now, you can go and notch these pieces, but I would also leave those as internal lines so that people can actually just place right on top. So I'm not going to worry about that, but what I do want to worry about is notching this where that's going to hit on that center front. Now I can just grab these three and it will add them together for me, or you can actually marquee over them and it will do the same thing. So that is 4.153. So I'm going to have to get out my calculator. Oops, let's bring that over here. And this was, get just those lines, yep. This was 4.153, and we're going to subtract this line from it, which is 2.545. So we're going to put a notch 1.608 over here. 1.608. So then we're going to notch 1.608. And that's going to line that piece up. Now you could do the center front. Now this is also doing a symmetric pattern. So we don't want to notch on this other side. So I'm going to remove linked editing. And then I'm going to highlight that notch and I'm going to delete it because I don't want it to show that it's doing, I don't want it to connect there. I want it to connect up just to that center front line. Then, this is where we're going to probably have quite a few notches. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 notches on this side, and we're going to put one at 3, and then we're going to put one at 3.5. Then we're going to go over to its matching 3, 3.5. So now I have those. Then again, 5.477 notch, blue, 5.477 notch. So that will notch that side. Then I think I do want to go ahead and throw a notch I want the top one to be 1 so that those match. We want to throw, I'm pretty sure, yep, so I can just throw a notch right here and here to line up that seam. That corner will be there. That corner will be there. Then I'm going to go ahead and give myself, I want to mark that. So we're going to go 2, 2. We're going to go 2 from the bottom as well. And let's take a look at the back. The back's going to be much more simple. So I'm just going to mark centers. That way they can line up the center and go from there. I think that's probably all the notches. Oh, no, I have this really long piece. These two. And I'm going to want to actually notch these because they're going to be stretching. They're going to be like on a bias. So they're going to stretch. So we're going to go ahead and mark that at 8. 8. There goes 6. 6. And we're going to kind of go somewhere in the center here. 7 from the bottom. So then we want to make sure that it's the yellow. Yep, 7 from the bottom. There we go. Now, this is the last one. Yeah, I'm going to want to give them a little bit of guidelines. So let's go 9, 9, 4. Oh, and I can't actually get to that other side. There we go. Back to the notch. And 4. That went to the wrong side, so I wasn't paying attention. That's very interesting. Why are you? Oh, I had the whole thing highlighted. That's why. Pay attention to what's highlighted and how everything's working, and everything will do much better. So there I have my notches. So now we can go in and kind of work on our grain lines, make sure everything's going the same way. Then we can actually, and also go through and label our patterns. So let's go ahead and just kind of take, so right now I have this grain line is kind of at this angle, which I don't want. I want this to be right up and down. So we're going to move it true to the y-axis. All those ones are up and down. You want to match to the y. Okay, you just look off. So everything else is looking real good for the grain line. If I had stripes or anything, that's when you might be really wanting to mess with your grain line. If you're doing a bias dress, that's when you're going to want to mess with it as well. They're really easy. All you have to do is grab it and then you can rotate it any way you want. You can also right click and you can align to X, Y, parallel, match up grain. So it's really a really great part to quickly add your grain lines. I love how fast it is. So next, and kind of the last major piece we're going to be talking about today is labeling our patterns. So if we select our pattern right now, it's just labeled pattern 5582. Now, if we go into information, so pattern name, this is where you'll see all these pattern names kind of come up. So this top one is, we're going to label it center front top. Center front top. Yeah, and then, so that's center front top. Then I'm going to label it as it would be laying on her. So it's technically opposite of me. So this pattern piece here is going to be the left shoulder. So this is center left top. Yeah, we're going to actually write out left. Then we're going to go center square. I should actually use center square front, or at least F. Highlight this one, right square front. Because if you were doing this and you want to manipulate it on the back, you'd want to know front versus back. Then we're going to do center, front, bottom, center, front, waist, band, B, A, D. I always recommend labeling your patterns, especially if you're giving them to other people, if somebody else is working with them. If you just hand them a whole bunch of random patterns that aren't labeled, aren't notched, aren't grains, you could end up with some crazy things, because it's like, you know, some of these patterns, if you have them laid out, it's like, what goes to what? How does this actually go together? It makes it much more of a puzzle that they have to figure out instead of an easy path forward. So this is going to be our left skirt overlay. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy that, because this is going to be our right skirt, right top skirt overlay. Then I have right bottom skirt overlay. Then front, center, front skirt. That pattern piece is the right front skirt. Now this is where labeling these two, it's like, this is the left lower skirt front, left corner skirt front. Then we have our back pieces. The back piece is going to be much easier. This is going to be center back bodice, center back waistband, center back skirt. Much faster to label that back one. And there we have it. We have it notched. We checked all our grain lines. We only had to fix one, and we have those labels on her. And that's it. We've gone through the process of trimming the pattern, making those fit adjustments, and adding all of those essential details. Now our pattern is prepped and ready for the next stage. In the next video, we're going to be taking things to the next level, bringing our design to life in 3D. I'll show you how to render this dress on an avatar and create a short animation and see how it moves in the digital space. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss when the next step comes out. And if you have any questions about today's process, please drop me a comment below. I love to hear from you and try to get your questions answered. Thank you so much for joining me today while we fit and finalize this pattern. And I look forward to seeing you in some of my other videos. Happy patterning!